Alright, parts finally came in, and we're going to continue on with part 2 of converting the Predator 5000 into a tri-fuel model, which allows you to run on natural gas. So I mentioned before in the last video I was missing that quick connect. Went online and went ahead and ordered that. This is a UL listed quick connect, so I didn't want to buy a off-brand Chinese brand quick connect. I want to only use quality parts here. So here's this custom regulator assembly, and with this regulator assembly compared to, like I mentioned, to the factory unit that came with the Predator 5000, is that this one has a prime button. It has a adjustable load block. I call this a high auto adjustment, and there's another fuel adjustment here. So I already went ahead and adjusted the fuel settings for here. So this is a unit that you can't really modify because, like I mentioned in the previous video, they put thread locker and all the fittings on here, so it makes it impossible to tear this thing apart and custom set up your own unit. So not only is this good for natural gas, this is also great for, so if you have a travel trailer and you want to use the propane setup on your travel trailer, that'd be great too. So to switch between two fuels, you just got to do the adjustment up here, and it's fairly easy to do. So, all right, before I get any further, if you guys are new to my channel, my name is Andy. I do tri-fuel conversion kits for gasoline powered generators. And as you can tell, these are all the generators I'm working on, and there's some of them that I finished. The EU3000 I finished last year. I'm also doing this as well. I finished 2 versions of the Predator 3500s. I am working on the Westinghouse iGen 4500. This is a highly requested generator. I'm finishing that up. Just finished this one up, and all the Hondas along the wall, and I'm getting to all these as well. So I know a lot of guys are asking me, hey, when are you gonna finish up? Is there a kit for my generator? As you can tell, there's a lot here, so I'm trying my best to catch up. I have plenty more back behind there, so it just gets a little crazy in here, and I'm running out of space as well. So, but anyways, back to this generator. I'm gonna go ahead and pack this up, put everything in my car, and go over to my house and plumb this thing to my gas meter. Hopefully in the next couple months, instead of having to constantly pack up my stuff and driving over to my house and test it on natural gas, I have natural gas outlet over here, so I can test it here at the shop. And also included with this setup, I put my own little muffler over here, so that way I can screw this into a pipe and so forth to direct away some of the exhaust and fumes and so forth. So maybe later on, if there's a demand for it, this is custom built, and it bolts on. There's no welding. It just bolts onto the existing muffler set up on the inside, and you just screw that on to your exhaust extension, and you can air it out. So maybe I'll have that made and sold. So if you guys are looking to have something like that, I can go ahead and make that. It'll take a while, but I can make it. And not only that, the reason I also have that on there is once I've already tested this setup on propane and later on natural gas. The fuel settings that I dial this into is not just some kind of guesswork. I actually have this fuel settings dialed in later on with certain instrumentations and so forth. So what I mean by that is, to properly set the fuel on these generators, you really have to use a 5-gas analyzer. So it's no different than for some of the folks, if they're familiar with the sniffer. So basically, when you get your car smogged, they'll shove a sniffer up the tailpipe and they'll measure fuel content, the health of the engine, if it's polluting or so forth. That also, not only that also getting your car smogged also checks the health of the engine and making sure that you're burning a proper amount of fuel. That's what I want to do on here. So when I dial in these fuel settings, I dial them accordingly to what instrumentations I use to measure the fuel settings that's needed on this generator. So that's one of the reasons why I have that muffler, because it gets screwed into a test equipment, and I don't have that test equipment here at the office. I do that at a engine test facility. So I go in, I pay a couple $100 an hour to do it, and to me it's worth it, because I can. That's how I guarantee that when you pull my kit out of the box, you don't have to fiddle around with fuel settings. It should be all set, and not only that, it's set accordingly. So that's why I have that piece there. All right, I'll get this packed up and to my house. All right, just pulled everything out of my car and set this up for natural gas. I have this 50-foot, half-inch inside diameter hose tapped through my meter coming up here. This is just a ball shut-off valve. Quick connect to the demand regulator here. Wish I was able to make a bracket so that way they could stand upright and next to the generator, because this thing needs to be set upright, as it states here, in order to operate properly here. So I just have it set up on this box. Even if it's upside down a little bit, as long as it sits vertically, it should be fine. So here's the hose and so forth connected here to this plug, and I have a digital readout box here that I made connected to 3 1500 watt heaters here. So I'm gonna go ahead and start this generator up. It's gonna get a little bit noisy, but I just want to showcase you guys that it does work on natural gas. So before we get started here, I'm gonna quick go over how I have the natural gas tapped into my meter here. So we're gonna come along here side of my house. So I get a ton of questions about how to connect for natural gas, and this is the correct way of having it connect for natural gas, right at the meter. So we have natural gas coming in from the ground, comes up here into this meter here, and the pressure gets reduced to 1/4 of a psi, which is equivalent to blowing out a birthday candle. Okay, and it comes up here, and there's a T, and this upper portion goes into the house, and the lower portion here goes straight to the generator here. Okay, and this valve here is a locking valve, so that way kids don't come over here and play with it. And also there's a little hole there, you can put the padlock through there so you can't unlock it. So in order to use this, you got to pull this up. See that? Pull this up, swings it over, you can lock it back down. And there's a 1/2-inch quick connect and the hose going up front here. All right, so why is it important to tap your natural gas source at the meter? I get this question all the time. I have a barbecue port right at the pool, or have a pool heater. I have a gas pit. Why can't I just connect natural gas from there? Look, guys, for the millionth time, and it's not that angry or anything. It's just that when I get hundreds of questions every week about this, it gets exhausting explaining this, but I'll say it to you guys in the video. The reason why it's important to have it tapped right here at the meter is because if you have it tapped downstream here, so let's say this goes in the house, goes through a water heater, a furnace, and so forth, and then after the furnace, most commonly people will try to say, hey, I have a gas heater in the garage, I have a water boiler there, why can't I just tap them from there? It's the same thing. No, it's not. So what happens is that when your appliances kick on, all right, so let's say your gas heater kicks on, your boiler kicks on, your fireplace kicks on, anything downstream from this will siphon fuel away from your generator, meaning that it will interrupt fuel flow to your generator. So you want to tap it upstream where it's going to be uninterrupted fuel flow. And that's the key thing, uninterrupted fuel flow. Your appliances like your stove and so forth will take away fuel or draw fuel away from your generator supply, all right? And it'll cause performance issues in your generator. You don't want that. So tapping it upstream, meaning that this generator will siphon the fuel first before any of your appliances. This is really important if you want if you want your generator to operate properly. And not only that, tapping it from the house downstream, right here you have 1 inch of inside diameter hard piping. Going in my basement and going downstairs, it gets reduced to a 1/2 inch, and then eventually 3/4, about 3/8 of an inch. That's a restriction, right? When you have that kind of restriction, it will further impact the performance of your generator. When you have it tapped here, it's all 1 inch to 3/4 hard piping, all right? There's no restriction in that, meaning your generator will get full fuel flow from your natural gas outlet. You want to have it tapped here, okay? You're more than welcome to do whatever you want, but then again, if there's any issues, I'm going to sit here and say I told you so, all right? So this line here is 50 foot. General rule of thumb, and I'll say this again, anything more than 10 feet requires a 1/2 inch inside diameter hose. Anything less than 10 feet, 3/8 inside diameter is very much acceptable. It should be fine. Reason why I say 1/2 inch is needed, it's like imagine running through a marathon while breathing through a straw. You're not going to get very far, okay? And not only that, it's only the pressure on here, it's only 1/4 of a psi. It's not much, and it doesn't take much of a restriction to interrupt fuel flow going to the generator, okay? So we're going to come back up here. Oh, by the way, when you have a natural gas outlet tapped at your meter, depending on your local code, you may have to pull a license to do it. So don't do it yourself. If an inspector comes and checks your meter and he finds that there is that there's no permit for you to do so, you will get in huge trouble. So you get a fine of $500 to $1,000. So you want to get it approved by your city first before you get it tapped at the meter. In my area you do, but places like Texas don't require that. Some other states they do, so just check your local laws and see if you can do that or not. All right, I believe I shut the gas off. I want to make sure I turned it back on. Go back here. Nope, it's on. All right, cool. Go ahead and okay, we're going to go ahead and prime this. And remember, you're going to want to prime this this regulator here. So hold the button down and you can hear the hissing sound coming from the regulator, meaning that there is natural gas flowing in from the lines. And priming it when you first connect the line is very important because there's going to be air in the line that you want to bleed out. You're not going to be able to start the generator on air, okay? So you may have to hold the button down. For me, I will hold the button down 3 times, 5 seconds each time that you press this button. So I already went ahead and did that. Okay, I'm going to start the generator up. Make sure that the ESC throttle is off when you start it up. Starting it on when the engine is cold, it's going to give it a harder time to start. Alright? You do not need choke when starting on alternative fuels. So, here is my digital meter. It's a little bit more accurate than that, so we're going to monitor the power output when it's on natural gas. Right here, my heaters. I'm going to crank up the first one, second one, and later on the third one. We're going to see how much power we get. I already went ahead and adjusted the load block here, or what I call the high idle adjustment. And I adjusted it to its maximum output. Alright, so it likes it right now. I have it set at 21 millimeters. Measured from here to here, okay? I'll get a little bit more detail on that later on, but we'll go ahead and test it out. I know this is what you guys want to see. Okay, heater number 1. 15 watt heater, 1.5 kilowatts, perfect. I'm gonna turn the second one on. $3,000. We're maintaining voltage, 120 volts, 60 hertz, just about 24 amps. Let's see if it likes it. If I crank it up a little bit more, we'll go a little bit, see what happens. I didn't like that too much, so I'm gonna shut the third one off. It's gonna settle out about I'm gonna let it idle down. See what. All right, I turned the ESC throttle on and it idles down pretty good. See with the ESC throttle on, see if it. 100 watts. Hey, looks like it ran great. So I'm gonna shut this off. Okay, looks like we maxed out at 3,000 running watts here on natural gas. As soon as I put the third one on, even just at setting number 1, the voltage dropped a little bit. So with the third heater on, setting 1, when the voltage dropped, I figured, you know what, let's see if I richen up the fuel here. So I backed the screw out to let more fuel into the generator, and it got worse. It's gotten worse. So it looks like the max on this generator is about 3,000 running watts with natural gas. And what I've noticed, I feel like the generator could have done more, but what I've noticed as it ran on natural gas is that the RPMs dropped significantly. So it may be due to the limitations of the electronic governor that's equipped in here in this generator. If the RPMs went up a little bit, it could probably be a little bit better, but there are some limitations in this generator. And not only that, there may be some limitations to the fuel itself. So, but I did run this on propane the other day, and I will make a video on that later. And it actually matched, I was able to match the running watts of 3,600, excuse me, on propane. And I was able to get just a little bit more out of it. So it did slightly better compared to the factory regulator setup. So, all right, I'm gonna pack this all up. I'm gonna go back to my office. Before I go on back to my office, I figured I might mention this, and it's pretty important. So a lot of you guys who do run on natural gas, well, not everyone, but some of you may have 1 or 2 issues, and the most common issues that I get questions on and so forth is, hey, I ran on natural gas, but I'm not quite getting the same performance as you are. And it could be 2 different factors and reason why you're not. And one of them could be the fact that here in this meter, when I measured the pressure coming out of here, I was able to get 8 inches of water column. This is ideal for natural gas, which is equivalent to 1/4 of a PSI or near it. Some of you guys, or in some areas and where you guys are living, you may just only get 4 inches of water column, which is less than 1/4 of a PSI. The issue with getting 4 inches of water column is reduced performance and reduced power output. Why is this happening? One reason is just you're not in control of your own fuel, so it's mostly likely due to your gas company only pumping out 4 inches of water column. Why just 4 inches of water column? Well, it's standard for natural gas. National standard is that gas companies are not allowed to go any lower than 4 inches of water column. So 4 inches of water column is the minimum. 8 inches of water column is the maximum, but that's ideal. So if you're only getting 4 inches of water column flowing out into your hose, don't expect that kind of performance coming from natural gas. Another thing, say, hey, I'm running on natural gas. It's running a little rough. Why is that? So, provided that you did everything right and you tapped it at the meter, the hose is the correct size and the correct length for the size. Another thing that you can run into is Sometimes gas companies, especially during the winter in some areas, not all, will inject a little bit of propane with natural gas to increase the BTU content. All right. So if, and let's say in your neighborhood during the winter, everybody turns on their heater, right, the gas furnace. Because there's such a high demand, the gas companies can't keep up. So what they'll do is they'll inject a little bit of propane into the lines. That's quite normal. If they do that, you may have some running issues with your generator. You can adjust. There's some adjustments on the regulator. Some you can adjust for it, but is it gonna really hurt the generator? No. If you start hearing your generator backfire and so forth, then you know it's pretty bad, and I wouldn't suggest running it on natural gas because the fuel that's coming from your meter is not adequate or at least meeting the minimum requirement of pressure. So it's one of the reasons why I don't like natural gas. I'm not against it. The reason why I don't like natural gas, in my own opinion, is because you're not in control of your own fuel. At any point of the day, let's say you had an earthquake or a tornado hit and the foundation of the house has been lifted up, there's a pump station or a manifold somewhere underneath the streets, and everybody in your whole block, right, if one foundation house lifts up due to a tornado or whatever, gas supply will be completely shut off in that neighborhood to prevent a fire or a gas leak. All right, you will be affected. So always have plan B or C. Having a gas can on tucked away or a propane tank. Never ever just rely on natural gas. All right. You know, I have customers that purchase a kit from me who are in Texas, and they had everything set up for natural gas. They spent the money and so forth. And then the 2021 Texas winter came, and not only did the power went out, but the power going to the pump stations and natural gas pump stations shut down. One of my customers, or several of my customers, didn't have natural gas for the whole 1 or 2 weeks. So you prepping and doing all that just to run on natural gas, but at the end of the day you can't even use it. What's the point of just having a backup generator in general if you don't have plan B or C? So don't rely on natural gas. All right. All right, back here at the shop. So here's what the kit consists of. This might change for those who are looking to have a hose kit built for them already. So right now this is how I have it mocked up. Right, here's a regulator. This is the propane adapter, and here's the natural gas outlet. Okay, they have quick connects on there. If you want to use either fuels, you just connect to either one of them. And if you guys are looking for a hose kit, I would also include a spark plug. I've noticed this with the NGK plugs, the generator does run a little bit better. So I opted to replace the spark plug in my generator. And what led me towards replacing the spark plug was the fact that after about an hour or two, after running natural gas and propane, the generator started to spit and sputter, and I couldn't figure out why. And I almost packed up the generator and turned it in for warranty. And I figured, you know what? I'm going to double check everything and replace the spark plugs. I do know that the spark plugs they use are just some Chinese off-brand spark plugs, generic spark plugs. So on all of my generators here, I typically replace them with NGK plugs just to rule out any potential issues with those defective spark plug. And there's about, I would say, 25% of the time I find the spark plugs to be defective. So went ahead and replaced spark plugs with NGKs, and sure enough, generator runs even better. And I gapped the spark plug as well too. So upon gapping the plugs and putting these in, night and day difference in my case. So for this is just a feeler gauge. So what I'm going to be doing is when you run propane or natural gas, these are preset to run either or. And when you switch in between two fuels, in order to have the exact same settings that I have when you switch between fuels, is that these feeler gauges will line up with the housing like this, and you just adjust them, the length of the rod, and butt it up against this feeler gauge, this custom feeler gauge that I have. So right now this is set up for propane, and I also have another feeler gauge for natural gas. So that way you guys don't have to fiddle around with the fuel settings when you want to switch in between fuels. I'll do that for you. So it's just the on-the-fly fuel setting changeover. Also, not only that, this is great for folks who are 5,000 feet above sea level. So if you're high up in the altitude, you can do on-the-fly adjustments on here, and I'll include a little user guide on how to adjust them when you're up of altitude. So the kit's almost done. I just gotta probably make more of these and probably change up the kit a little bit here. So I probably won't have these two separated. This hose will probably be plumbed directly on here with a 90-degree fitting. So it'll sit on the side of the generator like this, and this will be plugged into the generator, and the hose will be coming out in front of you. And I will have to definitely make a bracket for this so that way it stands straight up and sits vertically like so. So right now this is just 10 feet, 3/8 inside diameter. If you want something longer, we have a 25 feet hose with 1/2-inch quick connect fittings. These hoses are UL certified. They're crimped by a company of ours. They are certified in crimping hoses and so forth. We don't use worm clamps to assemble our hoses. These are actually crimped properly. And for the 1/2-inch inside diameter hoses, they are non-standard sizes, so they're commercial grade sizes. So because of that, even for me, they're pretty expensive. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit longer, we do have it if you need it. This 10-foot hose will work out for a lot of folks, but I know there are going to be some other folks out there are going to be saying, hey, we need a longer hose. That's fine, I have that for you. But do be aware that these are a little bit more pricier. Do you have to purchase from me? No, but plenty of times people they just don't want to do the work of running back and forth to their hardware store and assembling hoses like this. Here I have this all for you. These are UL listed. These quick connects aren't cheap. What makes up the bulk of the cost of this hose kit will be most likely this demand regulator or zero governor. If you look on eBay or if you go to Century Fuel Products website right now, they're out of stock. They're really super hard to get, even for me. The Garrettson ones, the original Garrettson, this is just I would say a copy of the Garrettson. They're a very good copy, but it works great. Century Fuel Products has done a great job with their demand regulators, and they're just as good as the Garrettsons. I wouldn't pick any other company except for Century. Garrettson would be my number one, but they are very expensive. You're looking at $100 just for this regulator. Okay, this is still expensive from Century. It's only a couple of dollars cheaper, but it's still very expensive. So this is the bulk of the cost. This is very expensive. Okay, but it works well. It works very, very good. And these are seen in commercial grade home backup generators. They use this. And one of the reasons Garrettson is not incentivizing on selling their regulators and pricing them lower is because they don't have to. There are companies out there that still buy them, large companies, so they don't really sell. Even for me, I tried calling them and get wholesale pricing, and they tell me, if you're not buying more than 5,000 units at a time, there's no price breaks at all. That's crazy. So even for me, I can't get any price breaks on these. So you're more than welcome to build your own, but if you're not comfortable on doing that, I can provide a kit for you guys. I know there's a lot of folks that do want to run natural gas, and I've been getting a lot of calls say, hey, have you seen the new Predator 5000? Can you make a kit for that? Well, sure, I can do that. I think I can do that for you guys real quick and piece together some kind of hose kit for it. So I'll do a part 3, and it'll be once I get some parts rolling in and so forth. I'll give you pricing and what consists in the kit. But for those who are not interested in purchasing but want to build their own, you can follow what I did, and and try putting putting together for yourself a hose kit to run natural gas and alternate fuels. Here, for this hose, my suggestion to you is maybe just leave this hose for natural gas and still use your the factory. Here, just probably use this just for regular propane, and then have this hose here sit next to your natural gas meter in a shed or in the garage, and just have this be solely dedicated for natural gas. If you don't like using that regulator from Predator, you can have this also run on propane. So natural gas or propane doesn't matter. I'll probably throw this hose kit on the website, and have you and just give you guys the option of having a complete kit or just a hose kit to only run natural gas, and I'll give you guys the option of wanting a spark plug or not, but they'll also come with this feeler gauge for your fuel settings. So, all right, I don't want to make this video too long. Please subscribe, give me a thumbs up, comment, or whatever, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks.